Hi, this is Georgina Villasenor-Lee. Welcome to my Week 3 presentation on compensation in the public sector. My presentation is going to cover the perceptions and challenges as it relates to compensation in designing these systems in the public sector, some of the unique challenges that we experience as opposed to what the private sector has to deal with. And then also I will carry these ideas and provide an example of what I've seen in my career as a human resources professional. So designing compensation systems in the public sector is rather complex. We have a variety of challenging factors in the process, or one can even argue different layers. So starting off with your laws. So one common law as it relates to compensation and making sure that employees are paid equitably or equally is our Equal Pay Act of, I believe, 1963, and there have been even more laws passed at the state level to really ensure that women are paid the same as their counterpart males for the same level of work that they're doing, regardless of the name of the position. It really dwindles down on the actual work that is being performed, which is why these job analyses are important when it comes to developing them and using them accordingly. So we have these laws that really dictate, again, human resources work. And then in general, human resources management really requires us to make sure that we are managing human resource, but making sure that we're attracting and retaining those really good employees. And so compensation is really the face value to attracting a candidate to the organization, and it does quantify the individual organization relationship as well. Because as soon as an employee feels that they're not being paid for the level of work that they should be being paid for, this whole theory of the equity and expectancy theory, then it is likely that this employee will either request maybe some sort of reclassification, be vocal maybe through their labor union, or ultimately just exit the organization. So the compensation does really quantify the relationship between the employee and the organization. We know that the whole compensation philosophy really is dependent and varies by the organization. So depending on, the economic times that are going on, what the priorities of the organization is at the time as well. So whether there's actually money available to compensate employees, maybe above market value, this whole concept of the lead or the lag or match. So it depends on where they want to be. But also, I think employees fail to remember that total compensation, or what is also known as total rewards, is beyond compensation. It's all of the other benefits that are attributed to the position or as part of the whole benefits package or compensation package rather. So it's beyond just the money. But the reality is, again, compensation is the face value. And then also what we ultimately run into is this balancing effect. As public administrators, it's really balancing keeping employees satisfied, whether it's through more of your intrinsic rewards, and making sure that they're being paid equitably at the end of the day. So designing these systems that really involve all stakeholders and key players is really helpful so that an organization is able to defend themselves in the event that there's some sort of legal aspect brought to the table, but more so to make sure that employees feel valued, and that at the end of the day, if they're not satisfied with the institution's philosophy on how they manage their compensation system or their position management system, that they're able to leave, perhaps to a competitor out there in the external market. So these are some of the challenges that we see when it comes to compensation systems. So as a human resources professional, I've been exposed to compensation very limited, and a lot of it is because both of the institutions I've been at have outsourced a lot of this work. Um, Previously with the city of Riverside, right after I left, I know they transitioned into more of a pay for performance type of compensation system. Understandably so. They've had some challenges with just being sustainable, mainly as it relates to the unfunded liability with the CalPERS retirement system. So they've looked at creative ways at really to motivate employees to do well, and to be compensated at a time that the city is able to. So they have been able to basically incorporate a way where once the city is doing well for X amount of quarters, that they can afford employees with some sort of raise, assuming that their performance evaluations reflect an above average score. So it's interesting to see this whole idea, the city's philosophy on no longer just giving employees automatic step increases just because they've been there for a certain amount of time. Again, it's really finding ways to motivate employees to keep on performing well, and to also manage the public resources, and also in light of taxpayers kind of questioning how cities using their money as they provide direct services. Where I'm at now, we're undergoing a huge classification and compensation study. Um, what I see with Riverside Community College District is that we have a lot of antiquated systems in place, and with the new Vice Chancellor of HR, she has really been able to observe these things, and she dismantled a committee that was responsible for making decisions about reclassifications from the um, the job itself to compensation as well. And this was really composed of a majority of people outside of human resources who did not have the expertise in this subject matter area. So this then moved on to negotiations with this huge classification compensation study, because we have job descriptions that were tailored to certain people, and um, we really needed to make sure that these job descriptions or positions were even still being held, and then really more so broadbanding them. And from there, the phase would then go into the compensation aspect of it. And so it's interesting to see, we're, I think, in year 2 now, and we still haven't gone into the compensation area, because we've been dealing with contentious conversations with the union. They're not understanding that they will only approve phase 1 contingent on what phase 2 will look like for the compensation side of things. And so they're having a hard time understanding how this process works in terms of position management and then compensation. So I really think it's helpful to understand how compensation systems have evolved, especially in light of taxpayers holding public agencies responsible, and them being more transparent, and public sector needed to run more efficiently as well. So at the end of the day, um, the idea is to still retain employees who are willing to be efficient and commit to the organization. And if they are not, then the option is for them to look outside. But the hope is that we establish compensation systems, again, that are equitable, that are deemed fair, not just from a legal perspective, but also from a morale perspective. Thank you for checking out my presentation. I hope you have a blessed day.